So welcome back to the Geterbrewed channel. Today I'm privileged to be joined by Mr. Jones
Hey.
and Mr. Curtis. And we're in Cloudwater for their 9th birthday celebrations. So Paul, tell us a little bit about Cloudwater.
Whoa. Well, 9 years old, it feels deeply surreal. Nearly half of that time has been kind of COVID-y, Brexit-y strangeness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we came into being 2014 round a kitchen table, planning this place out, opened up on Valentine's Day. Opened the brew house function really on Valentine's Day back then, put our first brew through. Hellish 12-hour brew day for a pale ale.
Yeah.
I actually ended up going out for Valentine's dinner with Robert Saltis, the president of Premier Stainless from San Diego, because I couldn't bear the thought of him going back to his hotel room on his own. So myself and my wife sat with him and had a nice romantic dinner for three. It wasn't weird at all. But yeah, we came into being, I guess, just to try and add as much as we could to the buzz that we felt around craft beer in the UK.
Yeah.
And first year, I mean, if anybody could click their fingers and go back in time, you wouldn't recognize the beverages at all.
Yeah.
We were quite classic, kind of typical, prototypical of what the Northwest was about at the time. And I think back into 2015, 2016, we started to find our groove and really hit the gas on bringing everything that we were really good at making and everything that customers really wanted to experience together. And it's been an absolute roller coaster ever since.
Yeah. I enjoyed today, and I mentioned this to Matt just as we'd sat down, having a tour around the brewery. Probably the friendliest brewery team that I've came across in a very long time.
That's very nice to hear.
Yeah.
It's because they all live in Stockport, where everyone's just really friendly.
And also a high percentage of female brewers.
Yeah.
Has that been deliberate?
Absolutely, yeah. The industry's had lots of different problems over the years. One of the problems has been running a very, very heavy hierarchy that's top down, where all expertise is in the head brewer and everyone else is essentially labouring on minimum wage. Scrap that. Flattened the team a lot. We definitely have hierarchy and management structure, of course. With 45 people across the business, you've got to have a bit of that.
Yeah.
But happy comes from, we're very human-centered. We don't need anybody to leave something that's real in their lives at the door when they come in. We really try and invite people to be their whole selves, complexities and all.
Yeah.
One of the other imbalances in the industry was that when we opened up, the vast majority of people that were staffing the industry just looked like me.
Yeah.
In some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
And that was okay, but the idea pool is too small. What folk want from the industry is too narrow, and ultimately the biggest cost of that businesses face is they can't possibly represent the full breadth of what the marketplace wants.
Yeah.
Because they have to research that rather than know it from their own experiences.
Yeah.
I've worked in a lot of businesses before where I've worked in men-only environments, and it's trash.
Yeah.
Like, I've never felt uplifted as a man in that kind of environment. So I really didn't want to have a business that was, again, that kind of typical blokey stuff.
Yeah.
Parts of the rest of the industry when we first opened were pretty macho.
Yeah.
And even and it won't surprise folk that have been following commentary in the past few years, but parts of the industry were really destructive.
Yeah.
And I think, when you try and operate on that kind of broader basis, bringing more people in, and it's actually really easy to make it work.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm most proud of in these past 9 years, we're just about to hit, I think it's going to be our 5th maternity leave this year.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, unimaginable even a short number of years ago for anybody to contemplate having a production staff as representative of society as we've got, and then kind of making space for the practicalities of family life and folk getting older and settling down. I mean, this is the real nuts and bolts of a mature business, and that's what really motivates me for sure.
Yeah. Did you ever envisage the success of your DIPA series?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 100%.
Yeah.
That was one of the most basic decisions that I've ever taken in the life of the business. The key thing that we did differently back in 2015, 2016 is we abandoned the kind of perceived wisdom in the industry at that point, which was if you're a brewer, you're right, and you're the expert, and you tell drinkers what they should like and what their experience should be.
Yeah.
I just thought that was trash. Like, brewers are beer drinkers, fans, whether they're enthusiasts, geeks, novices, people that consume beer share a lot in common with what folk want to do when they clock off shift having brewed beer. So we just said, look, rather than making this brewery all about some personality cult of some leader, let's actually just make it about delivering to the best of our ability what we're really good at making that drinkers really want to experience.
Yeah.
And in that respect, it was very, very easy to see folk getting excited about some of the things that we were starting to do with IPAs and start to experiment with there. And I mean, the first double IPA we made was realistically, it was very West Coast. It was clean, precise, quite bright, and we did kind of fall into that whole development pathway because we had a Hopfenweiss made by Schneider and Son in Brooklyn, and that made us think, gosh, the UK. I know that a lot gets said today about the UK being too samey with all the hazies in the scene, but nobody was brewing with anything other than US-05 in the entire country back then. That's a neutral yeast strain that was literally it. Yeah. So today's commentary on there being less diversity is completely inaccurate in that respect. Yeah. So we kind of said, you know what, the whole country is obsessed about this yeast that doesn't show up in the glass. Yeah. What if we start using something that does show up in the glass and actually contributes to aroma, flavor, body, mouthfeel, you name it. Yeah. So, we saw step by step the way that drinkers were getting really excited by trying new things. And, the foundation for us doing that DIPA series was we were the brewery that didn't have a core range. Nor did we just produce one or two or three styles. Yeah. A bunch of our much respected peers down south really cut their teeth on 2 styles of beer for a decade. Yeah. Whereas we blew the doors off that and we made 50 styles in year one. Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that all of them were next level, but they were exciting. Folk were buzzing to try new things. So we just knew that we knew that the path that we were on of providing people with new experiences in against that backdrop of core with maybe 10 or 15 specials a year from the vast majority of our peers, we knew that the whole marketplace, all those drinkers out there were just like us. Yeah. They were, how we got to the V series was, we said two simple things in that first 18 months or so in business. What do we have to brew that you're going to see back then when Twitter was a humble space? What are you going to see posted on Twitter of a tap list that you feel like you've got to make a beeline for on your way home from work? Yeah. And that was what we tried to achieve. So we said, let's make something exciting that's a draw to the pub. Yeah. When we felt like we were hitting that goal and we were providing that draw and making that experience that people really wanted to check out, then we kind of upped the stakes a little bit. And this is literally just me referring to my own life at that point in time. I'd be sat on the sofa at home and see a tap list and think, I've got to go back into town for that. And I'd look at my wife and I'd say, love her, I've got to go and check this beer out. And she'd be like, are you fucking mad? You just said you were shattered, you were not drinking, whatever it was, But I'd be like, I need to go and check it out. And I know that all my pals are going to be there too. Yeah. So there was going to be that buzz of community, that buzz of new experience. And so we set our sights on, what do we have to make that gets you back out of the house, back into town because it's such a potent draw.
Yeah.
Right, you get Dipper V series.
So it was so deliberate.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. And more than that, you know, I used to spend almost every evening looking over what folk were writing up on Rate Beer, which was a vastly superior scoring system than we've got access to today. So folk would educate themselves on styles, and they'd try and drink the exemplars of best in class to kind of ground themselves, and then they'd write really detailed reviews and score, not in a dissimilar way to like some of the professional judging criterias. And I used to study that, and as soon as we hit a sweet spot, I was like, well, we can riff on that.
Yeah.
You know, so that was another part of monitoring the quality of the experience that we were providing for the consumers, and saying, you know what, people are really like, we see the rate of sale go through the roof. You know, we see the online reviews, like the kind of casual social media posts, the buzz was there, but then the satisfaction was there in review. And so we're like, yeah, we're really hitting our stride. And that, I mean, at one point in time, you've walked around the brewery earlier on, when we had those first 8 FVs, by the time we got to V6, 80% of our entire cellar was making that one beer.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's ever been done before.
Yeah.
In a brewery our size. Our size is the Colonel size for reference. We've never brewed more beer than the Colonel any year in existence. But you know, when 80% of your cellar's making one thing, you're all in on that. Yeah.
You mentioned there Rate Beer, right? Now, not to blow smoke or whatever, but you were trailblazing back then. Like you were like number 2 Rate Beer globally.
Yeah. So you know, we got best new brewery in the UK, and then I think we started to kind of pop up left, right, and centre in some of the top. I think there were like top 10s, top 50s happening here and there in various different styles of beer. And again, if you're a thinking person like I am, it's easy to understand where your success points are and what you do to create more of that buzz, more of that fun, fundamentally just more of that enjoyment. And so, you know, we got to work. My background's in music, and I like to entertain people, and I like to study what works and what creates the emotions that I want people to feel when they drink our beer. So I just kept focusing on, I want people to be excited, I want them to then be thrilled with the result. And so we just had that mentality about us, rather than like, I'm going to be the person that is serious and tells you how to enjoy your life. I'm like, no, I'm going to entertain the fuck out of you and make sure that you're absolutely buzzing and telling all your pals about it. And that was actually no different than what a bunch of our US peers were doing. They were treating the consumer in a very mature and kind of level way, and they were trying to provide for their consumers what they were really buzzing to drink and experience. And so I mean, like, I am immensely proud of the fact that more than any other brand in the UK, you know, at that point in time we put the UK on the map as a serious modern entity in the scene. And everyone knows, you know, we've got one of the best beer heritages in the world. That's undisputed. That'll never go away, and it still continues to wonderful effect today.
Absolutely.
But at 2016, 17, 18, we flew that flag. I was going out and supporting all of those events and being a real figure, saying, the UK is a serious scene, and we're doing some really good stuff. And I think, you know, the opportunities that we opened up for everybody else is immense.
Definitely. It's on that history that I'm interested in, because I think when a drinker approaches Cloudwater, they do think of pale beer, hazy beer, IPA, which you've really built a lot of your identity around. But being here in Manchester, you know that you're not. You're about hellers. You've got brown ale on cask, and today you've got a stout going through the brew house, and the brew team are like, we're traditional styles. We're all really excited. What's motivating you to invest in these traditional styles again?
Well, you know what? So first year in production, we made an English lager with 4 different English hops, just to kind of really showcase that hop heritage. We've always made heritage styles and traditional styles. Why? Because that's what we drink. So we're sharing our passions with people. Now, some of those passions are like proper niche and geeky, and commercially, it's not sensible to kind of push that angle too hard. But I look around at the scene and I look at the people that we love to drink and we love to work with and we love to imagine a long life in brewing alongside. And like an act of service, an act of love to them is to make stepping stones to what they do from what we do. So we're really good at, like you say, the hazies, the hoppies. You know, we put that stuff on the map here in the UK and opened up big markets. But we have to make stepping stones to folk that we love in the industry, because they're our friends, and what they do really matters in the grand scheme of the sort of breadth and variety in beer. And so the last thing that we would ever want to be is a brewery that was just making 1 or 2,
Yeah, absolutely.
kind of niche, narrow outputs, and not trying to showcase that breadth. And for me, it's just a sort of it's our way of saying thanks to all those trailblazers that came before us. Long before craft beer was a thing. We're living in one of the most progressive microbrewery regions of the UK, and one of the longest standing traditional brewery regions in the UK.
Yes.
And it's really important to recognise that like craft only could exist because of the work of all of those heritage brands, some of whom are still in good shape today.
Yeah.
And again, like we can't live on this island of modernity, ignoring the kind of broader realities around us. We have to say, yeah, we're making a brown ale, and you know what, you might like it enough to go and see what other brown ales are out there in the city, and you might get interested in some of the wonderful trad bitters that you can get hold of here.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah, it's just really important, I think, to show that camaraderie by your output and not just by kind of sentiment.
Definitely. Well, I'm looking forward to taking the Geterbrewed team to JW Lee's tomorrow.
Amazing.
And see that brewery. And we're very lucky. It's unique Manchester to have 4 family brewers,
Yeah.
and it's laid a platform for everything we have today.
Definitely.
So it's very exciting.
What lies ahead for modern British beer, in your opinion?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. So I'm a mixture of things in response to that question. I'm definitely worried.
Yeah.
We've already moved beyond the sort of first era of craft in the UK.
Yeah.
Peak independence is a thing of the past.
Yeah.
And none of us actually have a handle on how things are going to be in the future when we really look at all of the investment that's being made into the industry by folk that maybe don't have our sensibilities of passion or our commonalities with the drinker. So, in some respects, I have apprehension about the fact that we didn't consolidate on even agreeing that craft beer existed. How do we define it? How do we build a really stable base out of all of these independent businesses? That era's gone.
Yeah.
So now we're going to be feeling out what happens as a result of folk coming in these recent times, kind of snapping breweries up out of administration with debts wiped clean and pumping a lot of money into parts of the market that we've never been allowed to access.
Yeah.
As a craft brewery, you're kind of in this weird position where groceries off limits, and some of the sort of bigger routes to market are off limits. So you're really having to try and make this independent business ecosystem work whilst reflecting on the fact that it already peaked. Yeah. That's strange.
Yeah.
But that said, you've only got to look at the fact that craft is successfully pulling in a lot of younger, newer drinkers. It's providing a breadth of experience that's exciting to folk.
Yeah.
You've got hundreds of styles being outputted every single week in the UK. And I think that that's still a compelling offering.
Yeah.
I think the challenge for us all is to kind of reconfigure around what's real now, not what we wanted back in that former time, but what's real and possible now, and just, you know, get after being part of people's lives in as many different ways as we can.
Yeah.
I've always said that there's a couple of different ways in which I think our beer does really well. First of all, we've obviously made a lot of the sort of beer that you talk about.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of liquid that you've got in front of you, and you're, you know, sniffing it before you drink it, which is weird to a lot of people. But you know, you're kind of getting into that sensory experience, and then you're talking about the beer.
Yeah.
And then, but then the mass rest of the market really just talks over their beer. The beer's part of their experience. Around music, around other cultural events, around different forms of relaxation. So I think craft has got to grow up, mature, professionalize, and really try and get to grips with what are the opportunities right now that people care about. So I feel like it's going to be a transformative and transition. We are already in a transitional time.
Yeah.
That what comes out of that in kind of hopefully more sustainable long-term function, I wouldn't like to call it, but you know, we're paying attention and we're trying to figure out what it is that's real today that we care about.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll ask you one final question. My wife, right, runs Geterbrewed. She's the MD, the boss, and she has been through a lot in the last couple of years. I watched a news article with you talking about the impact that had on you.
Yeah.
And I actually felt sorry for you watching it, because you were being genuine, which is not often seen in this industry.
Yeah.
But you were like, my health's been affected by this. How have you managed that? Are you doing cold showers? Are you running? Are you, you know...
Yeah, I mean, I tried cold showers for 6 months, cold baths for 15 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
My mental health has been in the gutter. This industry's definitely exerted more pressure on me than anything else that I've ever experienced in my life. And I came into this industry having been through 15 years of panic attacks and anxieties from kind of, you know, childhood and teenage stuff.
Yeah.
This industry made everything worse, for sure. You know, like, I think some of the ways in which people's passions get the better of their humanity, some of the ways in which people's sense of perfectionism or even puritanicalism get the better of their ideas of progress, that isn't good, and we should fix that. I mean, Cloudwater, for all of its apparent success in being well supported and well loved for liquid quality, is a business that hasn't made money for more than one of those 9 years. So because we operate at a high cost base, I pay my staff really well. It makes us really, really vulnerable. And so we're deeply uncompetitive commercially, because I have this crazy idea that capitalism is rubbish, and I want to do something better than that. But that just exposes us to pressure and risk. So I'm trying to prove this model that I really believe in, and that I think a bunch of the crew really believe in, and I'm going to keep doing that to the best of my ability. But yeah, managing, I have a heart condition from stress, born out of what I'm exposed to in my working life, and that's real, that's serious. Managing that's tough. You definitely have to be careful not to try and solve a health problem with beer.
Leaning on the beer.
So you know, I think again, this is all going to form part of that growing up process, maturing process. You know, I came into this industry with a strong intention to be in it for the rest of my working life. And I want that life to be pretty long and very healthful and enjoyable. You know, so I think the best thing that we can all do is talk about what we're facing as individuals, how we feel supported by the industry, how we feel unnecessarily challenged and threatened, and just keep that dialogue flowing towards the sort of support, the sort of care that's going to carry us all off into a decent future.
Yeah.
You know, and I think certainly coming out of this weird period of being quite isolated and being just a brand rather than a team of living, breathing people, or being a small business and feeling deeply isolated as a single person operator somewhere, now it's about getting back in front of each other and saying, you know what, this all matters. And that kind of, like I said, that first ship has sailed. That peak independent part of craft beer is gone.
Yeah.
And now we're in a different shape. And if there's ever a time to rally round and co-work and protect each other, and really recognize all of the things that we care about, that I care about, that you care about, that Matt cares about, all of those overlaps is so real.
Yeah.
And I think within that lies, we can still shoot for building a community.
Yeah.
Like a genuine, healthy, functioning community. I would say that hasn't existed yet, but it still can. And some of that might have to be on a local level for you as a small business or as a small operator somewhere. But I think making that play for community and making sure that is healthful and, like I say, progressive, not perfectionistic or puritanical, that's where we're going to feel that kind of embrace, that trust, that camaraderie, that kind of safe and healthful space that we can all exist in long term. So yeah.
I really share that. I didn't lead that question. I was pleasantly surprised to hear it. Business does not need to be brutal or corporate. Business can be community focused.
Yep.
It's a credit to my team that work with me as to what we achieve, and you can see that shining out of you. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, and I hope you are listening to this message and get behind it. So
I've got one more question.
Go for it.
It's your 9th birthday today. We're about to go up to the tap room, celebrate. Next year you're going to be 10.
Yep.
In 2020 you ran a festival that I got the train back to London. I don't have to do that anymore, which is brilliant. But I felt joyful. I felt enriched by friends and family and beer. Will we ever see that festival come back?
Yeah, we talked about bringing it back last year. And last year was too unstable. Actually, the year before even was too unstable. And what I mean by that for folk at home, if you went to a festival and enjoyed it last year, you were right. They were all great, but they all performed in some kind of mediocre way commercially. Friends and Family is such a unique event in Europe. It's the only event to present people with proper taproom fresh beer. Friends and Family 2020, the average age of beer poured at that festival was 2 weeks old from the entirety of all those different producers.
Yeah, I think I drank about half the truth.
And look, that was the dreamy, high aspirational sort of goal that we went for, right? Was cold chain, really taproom fresh. People were drinking beers that were debuting elsewhere in the world. We want to bring it back on that level. We don't want to bring something back that doesn't have that community breadth, doesn't have that freshness offering. So we're really biding our time for things to feel that bit more straightforward. Folk local to us in Manchester have seen that our much loved Canberra Festival has been struggling to find a big enough home for itself that's affordable. It is sadly really, really tough to find a big enough space that isn't trying to charge you 30 grand for a couple of nights. And so that's, though I think next year, or maybe even if we're really lucky later on this year, we'll have a chance at bringing Friends and Family back to life in that respect. But yeah, we're all about it. I mean, I have been to hundreds of festivals all over the world, and I've carefully observed the stuff that made me feel great as a producer, the things that made attendees feel great, and bringing together that variety of beer with that freshness, bringing all those people into the same room that are just excited to genuinely feel part of that producer community and drinker community. I'm absolutely desperate to bring that back, but it's obviously got to wash its face, so hopefully that can be next year.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks. So
Cheers.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.